My name's Eric, I'm 28, and until recently, I thought I had a pretty normal, if slightly dysfunctional, relationship with my family. You know the type. Sunday dinners with passive-aggressive jabs. Birthday texts 2 days late. Obligatory family group chat, filled with memes no one laughs at, but no one leaves. We weren't close, but I paid my dues. I visited when I could. Sent flowers on Mother's Day. Paid for the new fridge when theirs broke down. Quietly. Willingly. Because that's just who I am. Or was. This all started on my birthday. I'd driven 2 hours back to my parents' house after work, already tired and kind of wishing I hadn't come. But I figured, hey, it's once a year. Cake, awkward hugs, then freedom. I walked in, and everything was off. There were no decorations. No smells of baking. Just my dad sitting on the recliner with the news on, and my mom standing in the kitchen like she was waiting for me. She didn't even say happy birthday. Just reached into her apron and handed me a plain white envelope. Open it, she said. I thought maybe it was a check. Maybe they were trying to be sweet, pay me back for something. Or, best case, they were finally acknowledging that I'd covered their internet, their phone plans, and my brother's short-term car loan last year. But the moment I pulled out the papers inside, my stomach dropped. It wasn't a card. It wasn't even a letter. It was a statement from a loan company I'd never heard of. The balance? $25,000. My dad didn't even look away from the TV. Be grateful you're finally contributing. He said like it was the most natural thing in the world. My mom nodded, crossing her arms. Your brother needed help. And family helps family. I didn't say anything at first. I just stood there, reading and rereading the document. My name, my social, my address, my signature, forged, obviously, but a half-decent attempt. I felt like I was floating, like I'd stepped into someone else's life. My mom mistook my silence for compliance and started talking again. We figured you'd be proud. You always say you want to help. Well, you just helped him get his business started. His business. My brother Ryan. The golden child. The failure-turned entrepreneur who couldn't keep a job longer than 3 months, but somehow had 2 iPhones, a brand new truck, and an endless string of investor meetings in Miami. I hadn't heard from him in months. Not a single thank you for the car payments I made when he missed them. But now, suddenly, he needed me again, and they had decided I didn't get a choice. I never agreed to this. I finally said, my voice quiet but shaking. My dad finally looked at me. Just one glance. Shrugged. Well, it's done. That was it. No apology. No remorse. No concern for the fact that they had committed a literal crime using my name. I drove home that night with the envelope on the passenger seat, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt hollow, like I'd been gutted and stitched back up with fishing line. The second I got to my apartment, I pulled up my credit score. I already knew what I'd see, but somehow it still hit harder than expected. 582. I'd been in the 770s. Paid off every card. Never missed a bill. Now I was flagged for a loan I hadn't even known existed. For the next week, I barely slept. I kept going to work like everything was fine, but at night I was digging. Into credit reports. Into loan documents. Into legal advice forums and identity theft resources. I filed a police report. I spoke to a fraud investigator at the bank. I started documenting every transfer my family had ever asked me to make. I even found screenshots of texts where they reminded me to pay the electric bill, ones they'd later claim I offered to cover. The worst part wasn't even the debt. It was the betrayal. My parents, the people who raised me, who called me the responsible one, who always said I was the glue holding the family together, had seen my life, my name, my future, as something they could borrow and break without asking. And the more I sat with that, the more something inside me hardened. So I started planning. I stopped answering their calls, ignored my mom's just checking in texts. And then, last weekend, I went back. Quietly. No big announcement. I just drove up, walked into my old room, and started packing everything I had left there. Trophies, books, childhood photos. My mom followed me in about 20 minutes later, acting like nothing was wrong. She even tried to hug me. I sidestepped her. You're not staying for dinner? She asked, heard in her voice like I was the one being unreasonable. No, I said. I'm not staying for anything. I zipped up my duffel bag, walked downstairs, and placed a folder on the kitchen table. It was thick, maybe 100 pages, and labeled in bold, black marker. Identity theft report, Filed. My mom didn't open it. She just stared at it, like the words didn't make sense. What is this supposed to mean? I didn't answer. I didn't have to. I walked out the door, locked it behind me, and didn't look back. That was 3 nights ago. Since then, I've gotten 17 missed calls. 6 from my mom, 5 from my dad. The rest from unknown numbers I assume are either Ryan or damage control. I haven't answered any of them. But the last voicemail? That one I played. It was my mom. Her voice was shaking. Eric, please call us. We didn't think it would go this far. The police came by. They have questions. Your father's freaking out. Ryan is. Eric, just come home. We can fix this. Please. I turned off my phone after that. Because the truth is, they don't want to fix it. They want to erase it. Pretend it never happened. Pretend I'm the one tearing the family apart. But they did this. And I'm done cleaning up their mess. The next morning, I checked my email and found one from Ryan. Subject line, we need to talk. I didn't open it right away. I sat with my coffee, staring at the screen like the words might morph into something different if I gave them enough time. They didn't. I finally clicked it open, more out of curiosity than anything else. It was one long paragraph. No greeting, no punctuation, no apology, just a frantic wall of text about how this isn't what you think, how mom and dad meant well, and how you always said family sticks together. Then, the real reason. I'm supposed to meet with a new client Monday, and if this goes on my record, I'm in trouble. There it was. The truth behind the panic. Not guilt. Not shame. Just fear of consequences. I closed the laptop. I wasn't sure what I expected to feel. Satisfaction? Triumph? Relief? Instead, I felt quiet. Like the storm had passed, but everything in its wake was still ruined. For years, I let my parents and Ryan blur the line between generosity and obligation. I paid for things, not because I had to, but because I thought that's what being part of a family meant. That if I helped enough, gave enough, absorbed enough, maybe one day they'd see me as more than just the backup plan, the responsible one, the safety net. But they never did. To them, my success wasn't something to be proud of. It was a resource, a credit line, a lifeboat they could use without asking and blame me for when it sank. I had my lawyer send over a copy of the identity theft report to the loan company and the local precinct. Everything was by the book. I even recorded a sworn affidavit, complete with timelines, documentation, and digital evidence of forged signatures. The detective handling the case, Officer Marks, told me I'd done more legwork than most people ever do. I wish everyone was this organized, he said over the phone. Honestly, this should be a slam dunk. Whoever opened this account committed federal fraud, and if they used your social and forged your name, that's serious. He paused. Do you want to press charges? That question hit harder than I thought it would. I didn't answer right away. Because here's the thing. I did want them to face consequences. I wanted them to feel even a sliver of the betrayal they'd handed me so casually, like it was no more than a favor I should be thanking them for. But pressing charges meant no coming back. No awkward holidays. No stilted apologies. No third chances. Just court dates. Just police records. Just a final, irreversible break. I need a few days, I said. He understood. But Ryan didn't. That night, he showed up at my apartment. I only knew because my phone lit up with a Ring camera notification, and there he was, standing at my door in a hoodie, hands in his pockets, looking more annoyed than ashamed. I didn't answer. I watched him pace, knock, call my name, and finally slide a piece of paper under the door. When he left, I opened it. It wasn't an apology. It was a receipt. For a laptop. In my name. Purchased 2 months ago. He'd been doing this longer than I thought. I sat down, staring at the paper, feeling the heat rise in my face. Not from rage this time, but something colder. Something sharper. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a one-time desperate favor my parents made behind my back. This was a pattern. A system. An economy of betrayal, where my name was the currency and they were the brokers. I pulled out a second folder from my drawer. The one labeled Secondary Evidence. Inside were screenshots, bank statements, archived emails, everything I had gathered in the week after discovering the loan. I added the laptop receipt to the top, then zipped it shut. I made a decision. I called Officer Marks back. Yeah, I said, my voice steady. I want to press charges. Silence on the other end for half a beat. Then, understood. The wheels were in motion. And that's when everything really started falling apart. The next morning, My mom showed up at my work. I don't even know how she found out where I was. She walked in like she owned the place. Eyes red, breath shallow, wearing that same cardigan she always pulled on when she was in mourning. The front desk receptionist buzzed me. "Eric, there's a woman here. Says she's your mother?" My heart dropped into my stomach. I came out to meet her in the lobby. Everyone in the office was watching. My coworkers, my manager, even the janitor paused mid-sweep. She reached for me like she was going to hug me, but I took a step back. Her hands fell. "Eric, please. We didn't mean for this to go the way it did." "I'm at work," I said flatly. She looked around, realizing just how many eyes were on us. "Can we talk somewhere private?" "No," I said. "We can't." Then I turned and walked away. That's when she started crying. Loudly, publicly, sobbing into her hands like she was the one who'd been betrayed. "I'm your mother. We raised you. We gave you everything. And now you're sending the police after us." I kept walking. I didn't turn around. By the time I got back to my desk, HR had already sent me a message asking if I needed support. I just replied, "Family drama. It's being handled." Because it was. But they weren't done. That evening, I got another knock at my door. This time, it wasn't Ryan. It wasn't my mom. It was someone in uniform. The man at the door was tall, in his late 40s maybe, with that tired but sharp look most cops wear when they've had a long day but still know exactly what they're doing. He glanced at the apartment number, then back at the clipboard in his hand before looking up at me. "Eric Langston?" "Yes," I said, my throat dry. He nodded. "Detective Marks." We spoke over the phone. That startled me for a second. I hadn't expected him to come in person. Maybe a follow-up call, maybe a signature needed. But standing here, at my door, that was new. "Can I come in?" I hesitated, just long enough for him to raise an eyebrow. "You're not in trouble," he added. "I'm just here because things have escalated." I stepped aside and let him in. He glanced around the apartment, clean, quiet, just like always, and took a seat on the edge of the couch. He didn't touch anything, didn't pull out a notepad, just looked at me like a doctor about to give a diagnosis. "You did everything right," he started. "Filed fast, documented well. Most people don't catch identity theft until it's years too late." I nodded, unsure where he was going with this. "But," he said, leaning forward slightly, "your case just got messy, eh?" He opened the folder he'd brought, pulled out a document, and handed it to me. It was a copy of a loan application, one I hadn't seen before. Different bank, different amount, $47,000. Same name, my name, same social, same forged signature. But this one, dated 6 months ago. My chest tightened. They opened another one. Detective Marks nodded. "Looks like this was used to finance a rental property. Your brother's name shows up on the lease as a co-tenant, but the loan? All under yours." I didn't speak. I couldn't. My hands were shaking, not from fear this time, but from the sheer scope of it all. They hadn't just taken a single desperate loan. They'd built a whole structure on top of me, quietly, strategically, over months. And I had no idea. Marks let the silence stretch for a moment before continuing. "The DA's office is now involved. Because of the amount, the time frame, and the fact that you've got both digital and physical evidence, we're looking at multiple felony charges." He paused. "And they know." That made me blink. "What do you mean they know?" He exhaled slowly, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "Your parents were contacted earlier today for an official statement. They didn't take it well. Your father's already hired a lawyer. Your mother, she's been calling the station nonstop, crying, saying this is all a misunderstanding." I scoffed before I could stop myself. "A misunderstanding?" He raised an eyebrow again. Sounded rehearsed. "And here's the part you need to know, Eric. They're not just denying the fraud. They're saying you authorized it." I froze. "What?" "They're claiming you co-signed everything, that you knew your brother was using your credit to build his real estate portfolio, and that it was all done with your full consent." My mouth opened, but no sound came out. "And if that sticks," he said, "you won't just be a victim anymore. You'll be a co-defendant." It was like being punched in the gut with a fact you already suspected but still weren't prepared to hear out loud. They were turning on me. Not just lying, framing me. I stood up, pacing the living room like that might shake the disbelief out of me. "So what happens now? What do I do?" Detective Marks didn't flinch. "You keep every message, every voicemail, every text. Don't engage unless it's through your lawyer. And if they show up again, you call us, immediately. Do not let them talk you into a private conversation. If they're willing to falsify loan records, there's no telling what they'd try to twist in person. I nodded slowly, swallowing the rising nausea. Do you think the charges will stick? For them. He nodded. If things keep going the way they are? Absolutely. But I'll be honest, Eric, they're playing dirty. They know the evidence is stacked, so now they're trying to rewrite the narrative. You were the helpful son, the willing participant, the silent investor. That kind of framing? If they convince even one person, things get harder. He stood, adjusting his coat. But don't worry. The law's on your side. Just make sure your story stays airtight. After he left, I sat in my living room for hours, not moving, just staring at the folder on my coffee table. My hands clenched into fists, then unclenched, over and over, trying to find something to hold on to that didn't feel like betrayal. And that's when it happened. My phone buzzed. It was a new number. And the text said, "You need to stop. This isn't just about you anymore. You're putting the whole family at risk. Delete the report. We can still fix this." No name. But I knew the tone. I knew the threat. I stared at the screen, then screenshotted the message and emailed it to my lawyer with a note. Looks like the pressure's starting. And maybe it was. But they had no idea how much pressure I could take. Because I wasn't done. Not even close. I didn't reply to the message. I didn't have to. Because by then, I had already turned the corner from confusion to clarity. From disbelief to cold, surgical intent. There was no going back. No second thoughts. No, maybe we can fix this. They broke something permanent, and they expected me to play dumb, play loyal, play small. But I had grown up, and they never noticed. I met with my lawyer, Ms. Rivera, the next morning. She was sharp, mid-30s, not much older than me, but with the presence of someone who had learned to speak softly because she knew her words carried weight. We sat in her office across from a wall of degrees and certificates, and she handed me a thick folder of updates. "They've retained counsel," she said. "All three of them, your parents and your brother." "Three separate lawyers?" I asked. She nodded, which tells me they're already pointing fingers at each other. She flipped open the folder and walked me through the strategy. "Your father's lawyer is arguing that he never signed anything personally, that the loans were taken out in good faith based on what your brother told him. Your mother's lawyer is leaning on emotional manipulation, claiming she believed you were involved and is now devastated to find out otherwise. And Ryan," she sighed, "his lawyer is the character. He's spinning the narrative that you were backing his business the whole time and are now trying to cut ties because it's failing." I laughed, dry and sharp. "Because the best way to cut ties is to file felony fraud charges?" Rivera didn't smile. "Unfortunately, juries don't always think in straight lines. But you've been meticulous. The documentation speaks for itself. Every forged signature, every bank statement, every time-stamped message. They're scrambling. All we need to do now is hold the line." And that's what I did. For the next 4 months, I lived in a kind of emotional quarantine. I went to work. I ate my meals. I forwarded evidence. I testified at hearings. I ignored the letters that came in the mail, written in my mother's handwriting, but clearly dictated by legal advice. I ignored the voicemails, too. The tone changed every few weeks. First they begged, then they threatened, then they begged again. One day it was, "Eric, we love you. Don't do this. We're still your parents." The next, "Do you really think they'll believe you over us? You've always been the quiet one, the loner." And then, "If you come to your senses, we'll drop our countersuit. Think about your future. Think about family." But I didn't flinch, because I had spent enough of my life thinking about family, thinking about how to keep the peace, thinking about how to be enough. And now I was finally thinking about me. By the time the trial rolled around, the cracks in their unity had turned into canyons. My mother took the stand and claimed she had no idea what Ryan was doing, that she thought I was managing everything, like always. She teared up, even produced a photo of me helping her carry groceries from last Thanksgiving. But Rivera destroyed her on cross. "Can you explain, Mrs. Langston, why your signature appears on this document listing Eric's social security number as a co-applicant, when he was never informed of this transaction?" My mother hesitated. I thought he knew. Ryan told me he did. I trusted my son." "Which son?" Rivera asked, not missing a beat. "The one who forged the paperwork? Or the one you just admitted you never asked?" She fumbled. The jury noticed. Then came my father. He barely said anything. Just sat stiff in the witness chair, arms crossed like he was still in charge of a dinner table, not facing federal charges. He claimed ignorance, said it was a family misunderstanding blown out of proportion, claimed I had approved the whole thing through a phone call he now couldn't recall the date of. The prosecutor asked one simple question. If Eric agreed to these terms, why were the documents signed in secret, without a single communication in writing? Silence. Then Ryan. Oh, Ryan. He showed up in a suit 2 sizes too big, hair slicked back like a kid playing adult in a school play. He was confident at first, charming, even. Said I had always believed in him, that I knew he just needed capital, and that I saw him as the future of the family. Then Rivera pulled up the security footage. The bank camera. The one that caught Ryan signing a document with my name on it. Alone. No me in sight. A grainy shot, but clear enough. Time-stamped. Dated. That's not what it looks like, he mumbled. No, Rivera said. It's exactly what it looks like. The courtroom went silent. And that was the beginning of the end. The trial took 6 days. The verdict took 6 hours. All 3 were found guilty. Ryan was convicted of aggravated identity theft and wire fraud. Sentenced to 5 years in federal prison, plus restitution of the full loan amount. My parents received probation, community service, and a massive financial penalty, including restitution payments to me, monitored and enforced by the court. And just like that, the house of cards they built on my back came crashing down. But the story doesn't end there. Because when the dust settled, when the sentencing was done, the press coverage faded, and my inbox finally stopped buzzing, I drove back to that house. Not to reconcile, not to gloat, but to reclaim what was mine. The deed to the house had always been in my name, something I set up years ago when I was helping them refinance. They had begged me to co-sign, swore it was just a technicality, that they'd pay it off themselves. But when the fraud was uncovered, and the full extent of their financial manipulation laid bare, the court ruled in my favor. Sole ownership. No contest. I parked outside on a cloudy Tuesday afternoon, walked up the steps, inserted the new key, opened the door. It was empty. They had moved out a week prior, part of the plea deal. I stood in the living room and looked around at the hollow shell of what used to be my childhood home. Every memory here, every scraped knee, every birthday, every fight over curfew, had been soaked in betrayal, then wrung out and left to dry. But I wasn't sad. I was free. I walked upstairs, found my old room. The walls were still painted the same pale blue. I sat on the edge of the bed, now stripped bare, and took a deep breath. I stayed for about 20 minutes. Then I walked back out, locked the door behind me, and drove away. 2 weeks later, I sold the house. I donated a chunk of the profits to a local organization that helps victims of financial abuse. People like me, who get caught in the crossfire of family and fraud and are left to sort through the debris alone. And me? I moved. Out of state. New job. New apartment. New life. I changed my number. Updated my accounts. Blocked every email that came from anyone with the last name Langston. Last I heard, my father started working part-time at a hardware store. My mother moved in with one of her sisters, the one who always said I was too sensitive. Ryan? Still in prison. He tried writing me once. Said he was finding clarity. I didn't reply, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't interested in carrying anyone else's burden. Not anymore. Not ever again.